Hi friends, Diana here from Garden Love. I hope everybody's doing well. I'm very excited to do this video to share and give you guys a little hint on what to do. Actually, 4 hints on what to do in the month of March if you're growing fruit trees in container, such as myself. As you guys know, I used to be in a tiny little home where I couldn't grow any fruit trees in the ground, so I had to start learning how to grow fruit trees in containers, and thankfully I've been very successful. As you can see, there's tons of fruit here. I'm gonna give you 4 hintful tips on what to do in the month of March for you to keep your fruit trees thriving and growing and producing tons of fruit like this. All right, number 1. As you know, over the winter I really don't fertilize because your trees are not growing or producing fruit as much as they are during the spring and summer and a little bit of fall. So now that we are about to hit spring here in a few weeks, your tree is about to start waking up, start doing more things. This tree already has some little buds. It's about to start opening its flowers. So what I'm going to suggest that you do is find a good fertilizer. I'm going to be using the 6 Micro Plus fertilizer from IB Organic. I really love this product because it has just about a little bit of everything. You can choose any other fertilizer that's adequate for fruit trees, preferably something that's organic, okay? I'm going to use some of this, and I also harvest some worm castings from my worm bin. I'll show you guys in a little bit what that looks like. And look at how rich this looks, guys. This is like dream right here, guys. Dream. So what you're gonna do, the first thing is put some of this stuff all around. I would move some of this mulch so it's out of the way, okay? That way this rich stuff is going to the roots, okay? So go ahead and mix it in with the first layer. You want to keep this tree very happy. Now, if you're not having your own worm castings, I suggest you find some. Mainly all the local nurseries have worm castings, and you can find them. And if you don't worry, find yourself a good fertilizer. Like I mentioned, I'm going to be using the all-purpose fertilizer. There's some fertilizers. Another one that I like is from EV Stone. But today this is what I have, and that's what I'm going to use. So I'm just going to mix it in. I'm going to put a little bit more. Mix it in. And okay, now I'm going to take these leaves and move them back there. Okay, that's the first thing I want you to do. Once you have a good fertilizer mixed in, you got some worm castings, then you're going to take mulch. Now mulch, it could be pine needles, it could be leaves. Look at these are sticks, needle leaves from my landscape here. I did not go spend any money, and you don't have to either. Go to the park, get some pine needles, or find some leaves from your neighbor or from the park. If you do want to spend some money, you can go buy some wood chips that do not have any dye color like red or black. Just get pure bark wood chips, and that's going to be helpful. I don't want to spend any money, so I'm going to go ahead and add these leaves, and I'm just going to make sure that it's spread out. Very important, guys. I mentioned this in all my videos. Any mulch that you decide to do, make sure that you don't cover the trunk, that you kind of expose a little bit of the roots where they start, and then cover the rest. You don't want to get any fungus or rot right here, so you want to make sure that you spread it super happy, okay? That's the second thing that I want you to do. Mulch is so important because it will help retain the moisture in the soil. When it starts getting hot, your soil is going to be drying out. You don't want it to dry out. You want it to keep a little bit of moisture in the soil. That way the feeder roots right below the surface are happy and content, and that's actually the roots that are going to be feeding your amazing little blooms that are about to start coming out, and you don't have to worry about those blooms falling off and then eventually not getting fruit. So if you want to have fruit and have tons of fruit like this tree, you want to make sure that you have mulch, because that mulch is going to help with the moisture retention right above the soil, right on the top layer of soil. It's going to help those feeder roots. Those feeder roots are going to hydrate the tree, and it's going to, when it starts flowering, it's going to keep those flowers and eventually turn into fruit, as you can see here. That brings me to the next point, which is the third thing that I want you to worry about. And that is that I want you guys to make sure that you water your tree often. Now that it starts to get warm, it's very crucial that you water your tree as often as, okay, not as often as as possible, but as often as necessary. So what I want you to do is to pay attention to the climate and what is going on. If it's starting to heat up, I want you to come out, move the mulch, try to see if that little top layer is moist. If it's moist, your tree's doing good. If it's kind of dry, the top layer, you want to give it a deep watering. That way it has enough moisture, enough water, and then cover it up, spread it all around. Okay, you want to make sure that your tree doesn't completely dry out in super hot spell days, because that is what's going to make your tree drop its blooms. Because if the tree is dehydrated, it's going to drop the last thing that it produces, which is the blooms. If those blooms drops, then you know that you are not going to get fruit. A lot of people end up having a lot of blooms dropping, and they're wondering, why are my blooms dropping? Why am I not getting any blooms? Why am I not getting any fruit? And that is because you don't have a consistent schedule for your fruit trees. If you can go ahead and put in a drip system, because you have access to irrigation, that's ideal. You know, when it starts to get warmer, then all you need to do is kind of up the minutes that you water, or maybe water twice a day, in the morning and afternoon, very little, just to keep the moisture in the soil. If for some reason, like me, I don't have irrigation everywhere, I have a container, then you're just gonna have to pay attention and walk around, try the, what do you call it, the soil, and if it's dry, then just start watering your plants. I mean, even if you have to water it when it's really hot, once every other day, just keep it on that schedule. Even if it's still moist, once every 3 days, or once twice a week. It just depends on what kind of temperature you have and how your tree's doing. And obviously the size of your tree requires more water. This tree, if it gets really hot, it's going to require a lot of water. If it's not as hot, then it's not going to require as much, but it's still often watering, because this is a big tree, has a lot of fruit on it. Another thing with the watering, I think, is like the most important thing that you need to focus on when it comes to fruit trees in containers. Because say for example, you have tons of fruit and you're not watering with the consistency, you're just watering here and there whenever you remember. Well, I gotta tell you, your fruit, it's either gonna be dry, or it's gonna open and burst and tear, and you're really not gonna wanna enjoy it, wanna take that fruit and enjoy it. There's a lot of things that affect your fruit trees when it comes to watering consistently. Because if your water, it's kind of like our bodies, they know that they're getting water consistently, they keep pushing out that energy, and they know they're gonna get that water here pretty soon. So since we're doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and water my container. Give it a good watering. And I have sugar showing up here. She probably wants some of this water. You want some? Come here, Sugar. Sugar is one of my chickens, and they're all coming up here. I think they want some water, even though they have some here. Here. No, she's not coming up. Anyways, guys, that is some of the tips that I want you to worry about for the month of March. Let's go over them. 1, give it some compost and a good fertilizer to get it a good start. And 2, make sure that you add very good mulch, very heavily. It can be pine needles, leaves, or some bark wood that you can purchase at the store. Pay attention to the consistency of the watering that you're giving your plant. And lastly, guys, number 4, this is very important, guys. This one, let me elaborate a little bit about it, because citrus trees tend to have a lot of fruit, and they're very good about holding the fruit, and you get to pick it when you need it. And sometimes they drop, and then you can go pick that fruit. So citrus are amazing in the landscape, and they're amazing at retaining the fruit. Okay, but one thing, in the month of March, I highly suggest that you go ahead and take a lot of this fruit off, because this tree is about to start focusing its energy on the blooms, and I can see all the blooms. I'll show you guys here shortly. And you want your tree to focus on the leaves and the blooms. Keep in mind, it's in a container. It doesn't have endless resources, so you want your tree to be focusing its energy on the blooms. So at this time, I'm gonna take my Corona tools, and I'm gonna start removing some of this. Maybe not all of it, because this tree I think will be just fine with some fruit on it. But I am gonna be taking a lot of the fruit, because I want it to focus its energy on some of these blooms. And as you guys seen, There is a lot of little blooms coming up. I want this to get filled with leaves and cover this trellis that I made for it. This, by the way, this tree is growing Espailer, and I trained this tree to grow Espailer. There is some videos that I have showing you guys how to make a cheap Espailer, trellis, and that's exactly what I did. All right, guys. Well, Diana here with another episode on some tips on growing fruit trees in containers. I'm so excited to bring this episode to you guys. Don't forget those 4 things that I talked to you guys about today. Please leave me a comment down below if you guys have fruit trees. I want to know what you're growing in a container, what you're planning on growing, and how you guys are doing. I hope you guys have a blessed day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.